people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
It was due to the perseverance of a new breed of newspaper reporter, the investigative journalist, that one of the biggest cover-ups in American political history was exposed.
On whose authority were they installed?
The name still reverberates as one of the great American scandals.
On the president's authority.
Watergate. On June 18, 1972, 5 men were arrested planting surveillance equipment in the Democrat Party headquarters in the Watergate office complex just months before a presidential election.
Watergate was ignored by the American media and the American public in 1972. The only exception being the Washington Post, where a young reporter was assigned to cover this break-in that involved several people who were connected to Richard Nixon's re-election campaign.
There was a struggle in the Washington Post about covering Watergate. The decision to trust a journalist in this case, that was important, and it had consequences down the road for journalists being able to make these calls without outside interference.
In October, journalists reported that the Watergate break-in stemmed from a campaign of spying conducted on behalf of Nixon's re-election effort. This was apparent high-level corruption. It should have been sensational. And yet, the story didn't grab the public's interest.
Well, it was an election campaign, right? And people tend to dismiss this kind of a thing as just political rhetoric. It certainly didn't change people's votes.
According to the opinion polls, he's so far ahead of his Democratic rival, Senator George McGovern, that he doesn't even need to do any campaigning.
In November, Nixon won a landslide victory.
So help me God. And I state again to every
He flatly denied any involvement in the Watergate break-in.
I had no prior knowledge of the Watergate break-in.
But in 1973, after months of relentless reporting suggesting deception at the heart of the government, Congress decided it had to act. Who had ordered the Watergate break-in? In May, a select committee began questioning witnesses under oath. With that, months of national indifference came to an end. Watergate caught fire.
There was live coverage all during the day on television, and it really switched from being a story where young reporters were out trying to get the information to being a story about the constitutional process of the Congress investigating the president. And the media at that point were the stage for this drama to play out.
By the end of that summer, an astounding 90% of Americans had tuned in to at least some of the hearings. Witness after witness appeared in front of the Senate and claimed that Nixon had known about the break-in.
I believed I was doing something for the President of the United States.
But nothing proved definitively that Nixon had ordered surveillance of his political rivals, until one day in July.
On whose authority were they installed, Mr. Butterfield?
On the President's authority by way of Mr. Haldeman and Mr. Higbee.
In a shocking revelation, a former Nixon aide revealed that the president had secretly taped every single conversation he held in the Oval Office since 1971.
Who else knew about the presence of these recording devices?
The President, Mr. Haldeman, Mr. Higbee, and I.
The press seized on the information. Here was a way to prove once and for all that the president was either lying or telling the truth.
I just don't believe anything that Mr. Nixon is saying right now.
I think it'll be proved that he's innocent.
Initially, Nixon refused to hand over the Oval Office recordings. But on August 5th, 1974, after a year of legal wrangling, he handed them over.
These transcripts will show that what I have stated from the beginning to be the truth has been the truth.
But the recordings proved otherwise. The tapes had caught Nixon discussing his role in the Watergate scandal and how best to cover it up.
There is no gray area Nixon is actively involved in obstructing justice, and the tapes provide that proof to the American people.
It got major play in newspapers, magazines, television news. It really sealed Nixon's fate, which is why he tried so hard for so long to avoid having them released.
On July 27th, Congress began formal impeachment proceedings. And on August 8th, Richard Nixon announced his resignation.
To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body.
Watergate was a watershed moment for the American news media. If the press hadn't kept the story alive, it's not certain that the Senate would have kept digging.
The news reporting on the Watergate scandal had really important long-term consequences for political reporting in the United States in general.
Watergate showed that a healthy democracy should critique a president and should put pressure on that president if there is clear evidence of corruption.
The relationship between the presidency and the press was changed forever.
It inaugurated a whole era of investigative reporting that would go on to reveal all kinds of scandals in different areas of American life.
I have never heard or seen such outrageous, vicious, distorted reporting in 27 years of public life.